You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since first grade, now dads reliving the Disney movies we grew up on with our own kids. I'm JB Wagner.
And I'm Eddie Ferguson. And on today's episode, we realize our Nexus event was in high school making a groundbreaking student film as we review season 1 of Loki. But first, JB, how are you and the family doing?
I'm doing good, but I feel like our listeners are going to want to know what you're talking about if they don't already know. Should we even...
Nope, they don't need to know.
They don't need to know? Okay, we have Chris Litcher somewhere ready to dial in and to hate us for talking about the film we shall not talk about. But anyways, yeah, so we've been doing good. We had cousins in town. So Colby's brother and sister-in-law and their 3 kids came into town, and the kids actually stayed here with her mom while her brother and sister-in-law went on their own trip.
Whoa.
So we had them in town for a little bit, so it's been a lot of cousin time over here. So we went over to the zoo on Saturday, and I had done some work earlier in the morning for a few hours before I met up with everybody at the zoo. So I'd been outside for like 3 or 4 hours before I had finally even met up with them. And then we were there for another 3 hours at the zoo, pouring sweat so much to the point where where if a single cloud was covering the sun, I was just ecstatic. I was just like, oh, thank God.
Yes.
It got so bad here over the weekend that we've, everybody that you talk to has been mentioning how hot. Whoa, it's been super hot, which is a lot for Tennessee. If people are talking about how hot it is, that means it's really, really bad. But so my kids were fully embracing zoo life with the cousins, but you start getting wearing down later on in the day, and they're starting to get cranky and whiny, having to put my daughter in the stroller, which she doesn't want to be in the stroller, but then she starts liking the stroller because then she doesn't have to move as much. Got Maymay there helping wrangle some kids. But there was this one ride where it's like the zip line thing to go really, really high up into the sky and where you can kind of see all around the zoo. And then it comes right back down. So it goes up and down from the same spot, and it's only got 2 carts on it, or I don't even know what you call them. We'll just call them the baskets or something like that.
Yeah.
So 2 lines, but there's not like you sending people off one by one and going. It's like you go up, they get loaded, go up, then come back down, and then the next people go. And it's only 2 at a time. And so one of the there's three cousins that all are older and they can now ride the rides. But my son and my daughter can't. So with my wife and with Maymay, they decided, okay, we're going to take 2 of the kids on it. So they get in line, and I'm just sitting there with my son and my daughter and one of the cousins, just trying to stay in the shade, trying to stay calm, but we're like, can't really go anywhere because we got to wait for them. So they start going through the line. They get about halfway through the line, and they're kind of in 2 of the different lines, kind of going separately. And then all of a sudden they shout out, "You guys should get in line too," because then we got to hand off the next cousin to be able to do it. So then me and the little ones all take the stroller, all get in line, and we are then joining the line several people back from them. And it was about an hour, maybe an hour, half hour, 45-minute process. It seemed like an eternity of just waiting to go on this one ride. So then I'm in the line behind my wife, and then eventually she goes, and then she comes, gets the little kids, takes the stroller. I'm then sitting with cousin all the way up through the line. And the whole time I'm like, it's just like no cloud coverage, no nothing. What have I gotten myself into? I'm so tired. But you know what happened, Eddie? I got on the ride, and it was great.
You enjoyed it.
It was a fun ride. And I was like, I just wasted a lot of my time being not mad, but like slightly irritated, sweaty, tired, whatever from this. And I ended up having a good time. And you know what? That's the moral of the story. Just have a good time, even when it's sweaty.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, we're feeling a lot of that now. It's the middle of the summer. And I find that like you just got to push yourself out there and just start doing it and get through it. And you find yourself enjoying it. But there is that like, do I really want to go out? Do I really? It's
Yeah. You got to. It's actually worse if you just stay indoors and you try to avoid it because you get stir crazy. At least I do.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No. Well, and I am one of those people. I would much rather grip and grin through freezing cold than have to endure scorching heat.
Not me at all. Not me at all.
I find cold, I can at least put on more clothes. In heat, I can only take off so many clothes before I get arrested, right? So it's like, I would much rather just throw on some scarves and coats and stuff and grip through it. But heat is just, you're just in it and you just gotta suffer through it.
I don't know what it is for me. Something about the cold sucks my joy, sucks the marrow out of my bones. I feel like there's why can't I think of it right now, from Harry Potter, just sucking the happiness. The Dementor. It feels, the cold feels like a Dementor to me. So that is why I would actually be the complete opposite. And that's in this scenario.
No, I miss it. I like the cool. Moving to a place of eternal spring, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. In the not too distant future.
It's like 65 to 85 year round. That's
no seasons. Are you gonna be okay with that?
No, I struggled with it previously.
Do I need to send you leaves?
Yeah, Martha would send me leaves.
Should I send you the care packages where you can dry ice with some snowballs in it? Would that make you feel better?
Yeah, or just bring me a jar of water and be like, this was snow.
It was snow when we left with it. Oh goodness! But speaking of something else that was cool that just came out that we should be talking about, that we want to talk about, and we are sorry that this is a little delayed because we missed a week last week, and it is partially my fault for not pushing for being the easy target to be like, you know what, Eddie, I think it's okay if we miss a week. And you were distraught. I was the one that was gone.
I was gone.
You were gone, but I was really the one that was like, it's okay.
And I was like, let's record ahead of time. Let's do this. And
we kind of just ran out of time though, because we wanted to talk about Loki. True. We could have, I guess, talked about the movie for next week. We could have done that this week, but you know what? Things happen. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, we were wanting to talk about both Loki and Black Widow today. We are going to start with Black Widow. As it's our Disney news. It's something that we like to talk about here. Disney movie news. So Black Widow, our first Marvel film in what seems like forever, even though we've had other Marvel.
But it was the first one, since Spider-Man Far From Home, which was
it's incredible. December
of 19.
Yep.
So that was over a year and a half since which isn't that long, in reality, but in Marvel terms, they've been pumping them out like every 6 months.
Year. Yep.
Yeah, every 3 to 6 months, there's a new Marvel film. So, and this was the first one to do the whole premiere access, which Disney broke with tradition and announced how much they actually made on it. It had a big domestic, fairly good domestic premiere, and then a decent international one. So, yeah.
And this is the one. This is the one that made 80 million at the box office and 60 or 70 million on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time, and I was flabbergasted.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Numbers. It was incredible.
And then it had a significant drop since then, is everything that I'm reading.
Of course.
More so than they're used to, I guess, is the way I read it.
Well, basically because they don't have the massive box office that everyone's just dying to go see and just trying to find the right time to go see it. But I would say, Eddie, I really enjoyed this film. Partially because it had the full budget of all the special effects and all the crazy things. Like I'd gotten used to Disney Plus Marvel after 3 different series of just what you kind of expect from that animation and those special effects.
You can tell a difference?
I don't know that I can tell, like, oh, I can see the pixels happening. I do have some friends that do, and they complain nonstop about the special effects in that. But
on the TV shows.
Yeah, so there's
I haven't noticed.
I would say WandaVision I didn't really see much of that, and the things that they were doing fit very well with it.
I'll give you that. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier, there was a few moments where I thought, this just I can see is rushed.
But also they just didn't, there wasn't the grand spectacle.
Sure.
There was like, so thinking from some of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America and Winter Soldier, if I should be speaking better about him, where it ended. So you get some really cool moments, like that whole opening scene of that entire series, where he's just diving in and out of stuff, doing the paragliding or the whatever. What do they call? Is it paragliding? Is that what he's doing? That's obviously really cool and really a big spectacle, but it's also mostly just a couple people flying, and then there's some CGI helicopters that they fly in and out of or whatever. This was on a complete other level, as the spaceship above the Earth is shattering and pieces falling everywhere, and they're jumping from place to place and in and out. Sure. Like, there was just another level that I just forgot. Oh yeah, this is Endgame style, like just stunt work and craziness and largeness to it that the normal just shows don't quite have quite as much. Let me say like 13, 14 more times. What was your takeaway from watching Black Widow?
Yeah, like I was so glad we went to the theaters to see it. Like, just a
100%
huge a huge spectacle visually. I loved the music to Black Widow. I thought it was a great score. And I would really recommend and his name is escaping me, the composer. He did a great episode of the Four Scores podcast where he was just walking through like his inspiration and development for the score to Black Widow that I really enjoyed listening to afterwards. I will tell you though, for me, I struggled connecting with the story. I think at first glance, I thought, ooh, this is going to be Marvel's Bourne Identity, you know?
Yeah.
I thought, ooh, it kind of started with a little bit of that feel. And then...
For 20 minutes are really intense.
Yeah.
Like serious topics intense.
Uh-huh. And then I'm going... I don't know, though. Like, as soon as we break the Red Guardian out or whatever... he was funny. I loved his character just kind of onto himself. But then the storyline is like, I'm not buying this whole family. And it just, I don't know, it got really sloppy. And a part of it just felt like an afterthought. Like that, I think that is what I've always loved about the MCU is that it's a self-contained story, but it's got these great little nods and you can feel that it exists in a context. And this one, I don't know, maybe it was just the timing of it, but it felt out of place. It just felt, and this is what I told Sarah afterwards. I think if this would have come out immediately after Civil War, like if I would have had this between Civil War and Infinity War, I would have loved it so much more. But it just, I don't know, just kind of felt, as I think as a strong Marvel fan, I just kind of felt like,
Did you feel like
story-wise, I wasn't invested anymore?
Did you feel like, because this isn't spoiler that much alert if you haven't seen Endgame, that's on you. Because Scarlett Johansson her character as Natasha Romanoff has already been killed off, you weren't as invested in this little ragtag family group because you're like, it's just going to end in them being dead anyways.
Yeah, and
I hadn't thought about
like
that.
you just know there's no stakes to this movie, right? You know they're gonna win. You know she's gonna survive. You know they're gonna win, and they're just never. What are the ramifications that they won in the end? I'm trying not to spoil this too much here, but like the events of the third act is just kind of like, okay, what impact does that have now?
I think that the stakes were less about how is this. I mean, it's not really giving much away, but like the widows program is like this like international group that's that this guy is like running countries and other things like that by using his widows to take people out, etc. I think I was on with you on that of, I don't know if many of these kinds of groups are kind of bad guys really hold a lot of weight for me in like why I'm loving or hating the film. Cause a lot of them are pretty much fairly similar. I think what drew me in was the four of them, and specifically the relation. Like honestly, David Harbour as Alexei and Florence Pugh as Yelena, her Natasha Romanoff's sister. I just loved whenever they were on screen, and I just wanted all the time with them.
Elena and Natasha, that kind of back and forth. I mean, and that's where I get to the Bourne comparison. It's not just kind of the spy on a run type of feeling at the beginning, but that fight scene between the two of them in the apartment in Morocco was very reminiscent of the intense hand-to-hand
I can think of
that we saw in Bourne Identity.
Yeah, I think it was the second Bourne Identity where it felt like almost the exact same thing of them running through walls, fighting each other. Yeah, and
I wanted more of that.
Oh, like you wanted them to actually be more against each other?
No, not necessarily. I wanted that gritty
fighting style,
Bourne feel.
Okay,
and I think that's what. I didn't like that the Red Room is this giant, over the top Marvel supervillain floating city. Like I would have liked it more if it was a gritty underground thing that. You know what I mean? It felt like
it went too big for you.
Yeah, the third act just didn't fit the first two.
Interesting.
And so by the time we got to that, I'm going, you've left that genre, that kind of, and I don't even know what to call the genre. I keep saying Bourne, but just kind of a gritty spy film. I felt like that was just too much. And again, I don't.
But isn't that exactly what Marvel does, though? They go too far. I just didn't feel the stakes for it. Don't they always go too far with the stakes just because they've already gone so far with the stakes that they can't go backwards?
For sure. Yeah.
I just loved every second of Florence Pugh as the Yelena making fun of her sister Natasha. The more that she made fun of her 3-point stance and calling her a poser, I
hope they bring her back.
They are. Because you watched the end credit scene, right?
No. Wait, something happened. I have not seen the end credit scene.
Eddie.
I had to leave as soon as it was over.
You need to go find it.
Okay.
Go find a ripped copy of it somewhere. Go open up your LimeWire or whatever you have to do to get it, because the ending, I can't believe we can't even have much more of this conversation without, like, yes, there is something crucial that happens after the credits or in the end credits scene that will set up specifically Yelena as she continues on, and it's very interesting.
I'm watching it now.
You're watching it. Do we need to pause?
Oh.
This is great. This is great audio right
here. I'm allergic to the Midwest. What?
Hold up, I'll be right back. So Eddie has now watched the end credits scene illegally on YouTube somewhere or LimeWire. Eddie, what do you think of the end credits scene?
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Cool, 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 cool. Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, one, I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think I said this at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, like her introduction into all of this. Like, I can't wait to see where she goes with that. So for her and whatever they're setting up there, it's really exciting. But to go after Barton, yeah,
very interesting. Is she bad? Is she good? Is it in that gray middle ground?
I hope they give her her own movie.
She did a great job.
I think yes, she did a phenomenal job in this. She was probably even more than David Harbour. I liked her a lot. I mean, he was funny. He had a great.
It's so interesting that Rachel Weisz is the fourth banana on this, and kind of just is fine with it. She's just kind of fine. Like, I'm not going to try and impress you. I'm just going to kind of do my thing over here, and I'm important, and you will come find me when you realize that you need me. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I would love to see her own movie, and the concept of the rogue spy fully incorporated into the MCU interconnectedness. Because I think that's what I go back to. My two biggest complaints were I just didn't feel the connection of the story to the greater. Even the ending, like, they're not the post credit, but the ending, it was just kind of like, we don't know what happened with the general, and then all of a sudden we're back to the plan. I'm like, I'm going, what happened? What'd she do? How'd she get out of that? Like, what? Like, they should have connected it back at the end. They connected it to Civil War at the beginning. You should have connected it to the next film afterwards. Like, give us some continuity.
Well, probably because this thing was supposed to come out before WandaVision and all the other things were coming out.
Right. And I think now that we've seen the other three, the TV series, we feel the MC moving on. Like, we now know what so maybe I felt it more so because
you've had three series to move on from Endgame and just that whole timeline of stuff. No pun intended.
But you see what I'm saying? Like a tie-in, like they could have tied it back around and gone, oh, I see how this flows into Infinity War.
This feels, it's not nearly the same thing, because I think generally people have a higher regard of this movie than the movie I'm about to reference. But there is a level to this film similar to Solo where I just loved being with these people. I just wanted to be with these people, and I want to be with them again, and I want to go back to the movies. If I had Movie Pass still, or AMC A-List, I would go back and watch this again, because this was just fun to be with these four, especially these four primary characters, just in their little world and then their little corner of humanity. It felt like a one-off story to me that was just there and done with a little bit of handle to the rest of the universe. And I'm fine with that. There's so much else that's like craziness happening. I felt way better watching this than I did about the next thing that we're going to talk about after this. So I don't know if that should tee up our next conversation, but
this was good. I really loved it. I don't think it will go down as one of the MCU movies that I'm going to go back and rewatch, often.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is. But what people are really here for, and which we probably put on the title of this and probably didn't put Black Widow anywhere. We are here really to talk about the series, the third Marvel Disney Plus series, which is Loki.
Cue the Disney sound effect.
As we always do, the IMDb description for Loki, the series, which they did not call Loki Season 1. They just called it Loki. Found that interesting. But anyways, the mercurial villain Loki resumes his role as the god of mischief in a new series that takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame.
No, it doesn't.
That's what I thought. I mean, it's created because of the things that happened in Endgame, but it doesn't actually take place after Endgame. It's actually in 2012, kind of, or is it at any timeline? Is it at any time?
Technically, it takes place after
2012
Avengers. Yeah. All right, so don't bury the lead. Like it, dislike it.
I did not feel super excited about the future of. That's what I was thinking about. I was not excited about the future of the MCU because all I could see ahead of me was time travel. And I didn't realize this, that I don't know that I like the time travel genre. I don't know that as a genre, time travel is like super exciting to me, partially because it takes so much freaking brain power and there's so many different, like, how does this break time travel? Does this not? I've got my own versions of it based on previous films. I've got the future of, and to know that Marvel is just doubling and tripling down on it with the next
the next Ant-Man,
it just seems
Doctor
like this
Strange.
is where we're just gonna. I was like, it was a fun gimmick in Endgame. This just feels like, now my wife thought it was cool because now literally anything can happen, but that's not how I felt. I felt like literally anything can happen. So what does anything even mean? What does any of this even mean? And that's kind of where I left the series going. It was all over the place for me. I don't know how I felt about trying to make our main character, Tom Hiddleston's version of Loki, this like really, he's having a moment here. He's really thinking about his life choices as he's with himself. Basically, I had so many feelings. I need to stop talking and let you go in and say how much I'm wrong on all of this and how.
Well, we didn't do this previously, but let's just be very clear where this is going to be full of spoilers. If you have not watched Loki all the way through, you should stop. Shame on you. You've had your chance. If you don't want to be spoiled, you should stop now and finish.
And I don't think I gave anything. I think I was mostly talking very broad, but yeah,
sure,
anything from now on. Yep.
I liked Loki. The whole thing, top to bottom. I will give it this. I felt like it was slow. Yep. I think they could have told this whole story in one movie. There was a few episodes where I enjoyed it, but story-wise, I didn't know what it accomplished.
Yeah.
Like the whole episode of them on the planet that's about to be destroyed.
Yeah.
It
would have never happened.
You took way too long to tell. There's an important story beat that happens there, like their Nexus event or whatever, but you took way too long to get there. However, I think Tom Hiddleston is a fantastic actor. Like everything he just pops in and out of, I really, really, really like. So there's moments where I felt like he and the female Loki made they carried a weak story just because they're really good actors, and you could have given them, a used boat commercial, and they would have, made it pop off the page more than
I
it
could have
really
read the
was.
phone book.
Sure. So yeah, in general, I just felt like it could have been a tighter story. They could have really tightened this up. However, I like the multiverse concept. Then that goes back to my love of the TV show Fringe. Like when they went down the multiverse rabbit hole, I loved what they did with it and everything. And especially people crossing from one multiverse into another, and all of those ramifications. So I like the playing with the story and seeing what that's happened. You are totally right, though. This is going to be this phase of the MCU. The new Spider-Man movie is going to do it, right? We're going to see all the Spider-Mans show up. We're going to see it in everything for a time being. Here is this kind of hopping through time and multiverse. But I do like the genre. I do love what's interesting, not just the philosophical understanding about time, but even this past week with a friend, I was talking through the theological implications of time and God's eternality, and that's just a wonderful thing. But I connected well with this and enjoyed it, and I liked the ending. I loved that. Again, the thing I enjoyed the most was the acting, and the final episode is 3 people sitting in a room, and that was the crux of the episode, was these 3 just really strong actors going at it. I enjoyed that.
It was interesting when they entered in Kang, or whatever his name was in the that version. Not the very, 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 very end. I'm talking about the guard, whatever. What would they call him?
He Who Remains.
He Who Remains. So He Who Remains. When they introduced him, and he was not what you were expecting. There was a little bit of let me get up to speed on how this guy operates and what's going, because it's very different than what I was expecting.
It's very Wizard of Oz, right? Like it's a very Wizard of Oz-esque moment.
Yeah, there was moments that I was like, oh, this is interesting. They kind of went a different direction than you were kind of expecting it to go. I don't know that I would say that anyone other than He Who Remains was doing much of anything. Like Tom Hiddleston and the 2 Lokis were basically just sitting there having one-liners ever so often and doing very, very little. I don't know that I loved the scenery, and I loved the room. Especially loved the room because I've got a case for my computer that's also that black with like gold like accents and stuff like on it. I don't know that I was enthralled with that conversation, though. I was more like, who is this guy? What is going on here? Why should I care? I just want to punch him in the face.
Oh no, I loved the juxtaposition of the 2 Lokis of you can't trust and I can't be trusted. And seeing those two concepts being played out, where you had one Loki who was incapable of trusting anyone else, and the other who just could never be trusted, and that was the story we knew of him.
I mean,
I loved seeing that
they
played
came
out.
that near the end of that scene, but the majority of that scene is the other guy
building up to that.
The other guy is just splurging out like, oh, this is what's happening. Let me just describe things. I forgot what the phrase is called when you just exposition. It's just exposition the entire time, and then there's like kind of a moment near the end. But the problem that one of the big problems I have with this film, one of which is I've grown to know Tom Hiddleston's Loki as the guy who's always going to trick people and is going to try to do his own thing, and I've come to enjoy that character. This one, they tried to take him somewhere else, and I never got on board. I never got on board of that, and it got especially weird. I'm gonna say this weird. Him and Variant Loki.
Them falling in love
them
with each
falling
other.
in love. And there's a psychological part of my brain did this. My psychological said he's falling in love with his own. He's the most narcissistic human person ever created because he's falling in love with himself.
With himself. Yeah.
And also this feels like he's falling in love with his sister.
Yep.
It was so weird. Anytime they were sitting in a spot where it's like, oh, this is where you'd have the people starting to fall in love and stuff like that, and the final kiss, like it was just weirded me out. There was a psychological, my brain went over here and my heart went over here, and it just unnerved me the more that they were together. Then I was almost relieved when she pushed him through the glass or through the time, and it was just her and the he who must and remains, because I was like, oh, thank God this weird sexual tension is gone. This is so odd, so strange. So I think it was things like that kind of I'm very actually glad. I hope that she gets her own series now, or I think she might be a part of the Young Avengers or whatever the next phase is, because I liked her. I just want to know her on her own, not with Loki.
Yeah, I hear you. That was definitely.
It was just hard to get around. It was just like weird. Always there.
Yeah.
I couldn't fully embrace the story, like all the things you're talking about with the dagger and love and cube. Like my brain is hearing you, but also my heart was just like, oh, I don't want to be here right now.
Yeah, I will say overall, it did not live up to my expectations. Like when I first heard, like, this is going to be a Loki. This was the one I was most excited for. I had hoped things would be a little more Twilight Zone, a little Fringe-esque, and it just didn't fully realize to that. But here's the thing, like I do see all of the pieces. Like I loved the production design. I loved how it was shot and just the scope of it. I thought it was really just beautiful. Like, it had just several really great pullback scenic moments. The music was fun. I've gone back and listened to this soundtrack quite a lot. I enjoy it. And I like the acting. But the story was slow. The story was odd at moments to fully track with. And
we haven't even talked about the alligator, Loki.
Sure. And I have to stop and think about it. But I would probably venture to say the second episode and then the second to last episode were my two favorite. Okay. The second to last, when they're in, what is that? The Void.
Yeah.
What are they? And you meet all the variant Lokis, the alligator Loki and the boy Loki and the classic Loki and all of that. That was fun. Like, I thought that was clever and all of that. That was probably the one that I enjoyed the most, I'd say.
Okay.
But
what I found interesting for myself,
this whole thing could have been in 2 hours.
It could have. There's actually probably full episodes they could have just like, we just need that one scene and everything else can go. Mm-hmm. They could have kept a lot of that all thing leading up to the final battle, or the final location. I found it interesting. I realized today as I was like, oh, I need to go back and like make sure that have some notes down for some of this stuff. I never went back and rewatched any of this other than the first episode, the last 20 minutes, because I fell asleep and that I had to go back and rewatch it. All the other two series, I went right before the last two episodes or so, somewhere in there. I went back and rewatched all the episodes to be caught up for the latest one, to just like make sure I didn't miss anything. This series I didn't. Maybe it's because I'd watched the extra episodes, like the 63 Easter eggs, which I did in the other series. I just don't know what there wasn't a desire to go back and relive in that world. I don't know what was that, and maybe I think it's probably just because of the weirdness between the two Lokis for me. I was like, I don't want to read. I don't want to go down this rabbit trail again.
I never felt the pressing nature of it.
Yeah.
This was the first one that the other two series, we watched the episodes like as soon as they drop. And maybe this was because it was Wednesdays and in the middle of the week is a little bit hard. It is a little bit harder for us and just our family schedule. But I didn't watch things until often Saturday night. Like there wasn't that like, oh my goodness, we have to get home so we can watch Loki. We didn't feel that.
We did. So my wife after a couple episodes was like, actually maybe after the first episode was just like, I'm out. She still watched bits and pieces of it while I was watching it, but I still made it like appointment television to watch it every Wednesday night. But you're right, that maybe that's part of it is I didn't have the weekend to like, hey, let me watch that again because it's right into Thursday and Friday and stuff like that.
So it's interesting. I just hopped on Wikipedia really quick just to kind of check out a few details, and they in the like second paragraph it says it has received positive reviews with praise for performances, musical score, and visuals. I'm like, hey, I could have written that. Those are the three things I called out, but yeah, second season is in development already, which is really crazy. I will say I liked the whole concept of the time variance authority. I loved the analog aesthetics. That to me was just fun. I'm not saying even story wise or anything. It's just kind of a clever production design. And most people don't. That's not what they're going to go watch a TV series for. But for me, I really enjoy those things. And when I see a good production design, it's fun. Owen Wilson was shockingly good. I enjoyed him in this.
Yeah, we went a long time without talking about him, but he was great.
At first, when they announced that he was in this, I was kind of curious. Are we just going to get kind of classic Owen Wilson, wow, all the time. But this was really good. This and Midnight in Paris. Those are like oh, wow, this guy's actually got some serious acting chops to him.
My friend told me after he saw episode 3, he was like, the writers must have sat down with themselves and said, it'd be great. We have this really great actor named Owen Wilson, who's been secretly one of the best parts of this show. And we're in this cool place called the TVA. You know what we should do for episode 3? Be completely outside the TVA and not have a single second of Owen Wilson on the screen. I just kind of laughed at that, which I think we've already talked about that Lamentus was one of the weaker of the weakest just probably episode.
Weird. Yeah, I just didn't understand it at all. My two favorites, the second episode, the variant when we actually meet her. Meet her in that kind of supermarket store. I liked that kind of play around there a little bit. But as soon as it's revealed that it's her, the interaction, I would agree with you, the interaction between the two Lokis is just weird from there on out. Lamentus, like, why does that episode even exist? I don't understand how it pushed the story forward. And then the next one, the Nexus event was just, it was interesting. That is where you finally, our Loki, the Loki we know, gets pruned. The timekeepers get decapitated.
Cuts the head off. Yep.
But even that, like, I don't know how you're pushing the story for it. I'm not compelled by that story. And then that fifth one, the Journey into Mystery, I liked that. I liked the classic Loki, alligator Loki, kid Loki, and just kind of all of those dynamics. That was just such a ragtag little adventure for me. I
would agree. A lot of my favorite moments were definitely in uh episode 5. Episode 4 had a lot of big, like, oh wow moments of
Sure.
just story for it. I think overall, I'm just not excited to jump back into it to kind of like go do another round of it. I felt more of that on especially on WandaVision, partially because I was trying to piece all the things together, all the Easter eggs together, and learn some more things. To see it again, because you're watching it once one way and then you're given a brand new vision of it halfway through when you kind of get outside the bubble. This I didn't. So that's why I'm saying it didn't leave me like super excited for the rest of it if we're just going to continue being on this timeline thing. Now, maybe this is the deepest we go on it in the sense of the most present it is on it, but I don't think so because of some of the other titles that we have coming up with Spider-Man especially. Yeah. I mean, if they're going to bring back Tobey Maguire and
Andrew
Garfield, like they've got to be a big part of the story, but I'm hoping that they prove me wrong and I'm just being hesitant and sad version of myself.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. This whole a Marvel TV shows has been interesting how this has played out because it truly flipped my expectations. Where I was least looking forward to WandaVision, and probably now that it's all over, I would say WandaVision was my favorite of all three of them.
I think I'd agree with you on that.
On just every level, I really liked WandaVision, and it has a powerful, self-contained story that then also goes and impacts the rest of the MCU.
Yep, I would agree.
Which again, I think, and this goes back to Black Widow, I think that's been what I've enjoyed about the MCU is that each film, each entry has a powerful, self-contained story that then, look how it connects and impacts the rest of it. I really felt that with WandaVision. Loki, I don't know, it almost needs something else to help prop it up. Like the internal story wasn't sufficient enough. So I don't know. I'm glad there's a second season. So it's like, oh, okay, something happens there. And I liked that he came back to the TVA and Kang had already taken over and, something's going on. We'll see what happens.
And we will see Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp #2. Quantum. Well, I guess it's #3 for Ant-Man. It's in the Quantum Mania or something like.
Quantum Mania is what they're calling it.
I'm also looking ahead towards the next Marvel series. We've got What If coming up in next week. No, in 2 weeks. We got a week from Wednesday. No,
that's animated.
Weeks. Yeah, so it's an animated, and I don't know that has any strong implications for the greater universe because it's just literally, what if, blah, blah, blah. What if this person was this instead of this? All of those kind of things. This is what if Peggy Carter had taken the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers. That's super fun.
Yep.
Then later this year, we have Hawkeye, which they just released a fun little behind the scenes thing with Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld. So that's got a thing later on this year, as well as Miss Marvel, Moon Knight. Oh, that's 2022. So there's a couple more things coming out as well as, but I'm super excited about Shang-Chi, especially if they don't do any time travel stuff, which it doesn't. I haven't seen any.
I don't think it will.
Stuff.
I think we're going to see a very self-contained story there.
Oh, I'm so excited. Because I know nothing really about it, but there's Aquafina in it, and the rings look cool, and I'm all about that. Just everything. As you can see from my shirt, that's got Japanese writing on it for the Tokyo Olympics.
The Eternals is the next one, November 5th, which I don't know. That one I've kind of watched it. I'm just, we'll see. I'll see it, but I don't know. Spider-Man No Way Home, that's in December. I'm really looking forward to that because I really like the Spider-Man of the MCU.
Tom Holland, he's a treasure. He's a national
Yeah,
treasure.
I go back and watch. I like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and I like those. I've gone back and watched those Spider-Man so much.
Tobey Maguire?
I'm not a big no, not there. And then we get in March 22, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I think that'll be the one where we start to see the multiverse in WandaVision coming in and Kang and all of those things. And Ant-Man and the Wasp is actually pretty far off. It's not until February 2023. So we're a good over a year and a half away from seeing that. So
seeing Kang back.
Yeah, we've got some time there. And in between that, you've got May 22 is Thor: Love and Thunder, which I'm looking forward to because I really liked Ragnarok. And then Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We'll see what they put together there.
I think they're focusing more on his sister there, potentially.
Yeah, potentially. So overall, I will probably find myself maybe going back and watching a little bit of Loki, but not rewatching it like the others. Yeah. Have you watched the making of Loki yet?
Not yet. I should.
Marvel Assembled.
I do like those.
I do too. And this one was fun. I enjoyed kind of seeing how it all came together. Tom Hiddleston kind of hosts it, which makes it interesting. Because the other ones was very much just kind of a docu-series. This one is a little more hosted.
Okay. Maybe because they couldn't film as much behind the scenes stuff, so they kind of more interview style. Who knows?
Maybe.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Next week, even though we said last time that we were going to be doing it this time, so it's almost 2 weeks off, we're doing First Kid with Sinbad, which I've never seen. So
I love how you put with Sinbad.
Oh, you got to call it out. Like, that's a big deal that Sinbad is in this film. It's a very 90s thing.
It's the 90s.
I did, Eddie. We honored a team member this past week at our office that had been with the company for 25 years.
Whoa!
And he started. Guess what year?
1996.
Yes, and twice people used the whole trope of what else came out in 1996, and I was like, I already know all of these answers because we did it on the first episode. We did for 1996, all about the MLS and other things that happened that year, but like in Nintendo 64. But anyways, thanks for listening to another episode.